Hi, I'm Emily. I'm 19 years old and I'm currently studying at uni in Exeter. And today I'm going to be talking about the question of, are we good enough for Jesus? Can we be good enough for Jesus? And the story that I'm going to be using to talk about this is from one of the four Gospels, which are books in the Bible that Jesus' disciples, so his friends, wrote about Jesus' life so that we could know the things he did and learn from them today. And this one is by John, and it's in chapter 4, and it's about the Samaritan woman at the well. So Jesus was on his way to Galilee, and to get to Galilee he had to go through Samaria, which was a region in Israel which today is just north of Jerusalem. And you know, on his long walk he was tired, so he sat by a well and asked the woman there for water. Normal, right? Wrong. He sat down next to a Samaritan woman and asked her for water. So the cultural differences between Jesus being a Jewish man and the Samaritan woman being a Samaritan from Samaria were huge, and there was conflict between them so that a Jew would never go and sit and talk to a Samaritan. To add to that, Jesus was a man talking to a woman, which just adds to the level of radical that he was going to by talking to her and asking her for a drink. And she knows this, and she says, "Why are you asking me for a drink?" And he says, "You should be asking me for a drink, because if you drink this water from the well, you will be thirsty again. But if you drink my living water, you will have eternal life, and you will never be thirsty again." And this is really significant because Jesus is telling her the whole point of him. He is telling her that he is God and that he is coming to kind of save these people as God's beloved children, as the living water. And the fact that he's telling her that is huge. But then, as this conversation goes on, it gets even better. So he then says to her, "Oh, can you go and get your husband?" And she says, "I don't have a husband." And Jesus knows already. He says, "You've had 5 husbands already, and the man that you're with now is not your husband." And she says, "Yes." And so, because of this, Jesus knows that she would have been shunned by her community for being sexually promiscuous, because in those days, she would have really been looked down on for that. And so, she really would have been shunned by her community. So she's really not a popular person in the world, because she's such an outlaw. And the fact that he is telling her this, that's hugely significant. And then he even goes on to say, when she mentions the Messiah, he says, "I am he, I am the Messiah." And that's the first time he reveals who he is. That's the first time he reveals his identity to anybody in the Bible. That's the first time we know who Jesus is in John 4, because he tells this Samaritan woman at the well, the woman who is the lowest in society, the woman who is the outcast, and he chooses to tell her and to still offer her the living water. So you might be thinking, can we learn anything from this today? I think there's so much to learn from this. I think it says 3 things about Jesus. The first thing is that he sees you. He came and sat with the Samaritan woman at the well. He knew she was a Samaritan woman and the conflicts that were going on, and he knew that society would dictate that he wouldn't sit with her. But he sits with her anyway. He sees you. He sees how important she is, even though people don't. The second thing is that he knows you. He knows all the bad things that you've ever done, all the things that you're not proud of, all the things that people shun you for. He sees how many husbands she has had and the way that she is shunned for that. And yet he loves you anyway. And he offers you his living water, no matter who you are, because he loves you anyway. And that is so huge. And it offers us the living water to anybody. There is nothing that we can ever do to be good enough for Jesus. There is no condemnation. One of my favourite authors, Jeff Bethke, he got famous by one of his YouTube videos. So he kind of wrote a poem and put it on YouTube, and it went viral overnight. And the poem was called "Jesus is Greater Than Religion." And it really talks about the way in which religion and Jesus are different, and the way that religion has rules which mean that you need to be good enough in order to find Jesus, and you need to change yourself to find Jesus. But Jesus says that there's nothing that you could do to ever be more lovely in his eyes, and that there's nothing you could do to be closer to him. To quote, his poem says, "Religion says do, Jesus says done." Jesus is right there. He sits there and he meets exactly where you are. He meets you where you are. There is no condemnation from him, and it is just love, and that's it. That's it. He loves you as you are, and he sits with you as you are. And even though you might be embarrassed that he knows all the bad things that you've ever done, and that might be a reason why you think that Jesus is not for you, he sees all of that, and he loves you anyway, and he loves you as you are, and he gives you the living water, and he loves you as you are, and that's it. That's literally it. And that's very exciting, I think. Bam. Pow pow. Yeah.